Alright, so the book that I read was The Absolute True Diary of a Part-Time Indian by Sherman Alexie, something like that. And this book is just basically about this kid named Junior, who, his real name's Arnold, but he goes by Junior. And he lives on an Indian reservation, and like he has lived there his whole life. All his friends are there. Everyone he knows is in that reservation. Like, nobody leaves the reservation. Like, you go to school there, you work there, like, you do everything there. Then, like, one day, Junior decides that he wants to go to a school called Reardan, which is a white school outside of the reservation. And he, like, decides he wants to go there, so he goes there. And, like, everyone at the reservation finds out, and they like don't like him for it because it's not common and it's not something you normally do on the reservation. So he gets like bullied a lot, and his best friend, whose name is Rowdy, like they're not friends anymore because Rowdy hates the idea that he's going to a all white school because he's like betraying him. So then they like aren't friends anymore, so he has to go through losing his best friend and getting bullied at his new school. So he finally, like, once he gets to the new school, he joins the basketball team. And when he joins that, he finally has people, like, that are on his side and will help him and lift him up when he's having a bad day. And then towards the end of the book, Junior and Rowdy finally become friends again. And yeah, then they all, like, everything's good. They become friends and everything was good. So the reading strategy. So my reading strategy when I was reading the book is that, like, I read it, and then if I didn't understand a part, I would go back and reread it just so I understood it. And you also had to, like, there was quite a lot of characters, so you had to kind of know which character was which and, like, their personalities and how they act and stuff to be able to have the book make sense. And then this book was also written in the form of, like, Junior's journal, so there's, like, pictures in there as if he was drawing in his journal. And a quote that I have that supports this is, every kid wants to go outside, but it's safer to stay at home. So I mostly hang out alone in my bedroom and read books and draw cartoons. So, and then this quote, like, I picked it because it goes along with this picture that Junior drew of himself, so you can kind of get an idea of what he looks like and what type of kid he was to help you better understand, like, what people look like. And he does that throughout the book a lot. Like, this part he draws his, like, gym teacher, and he draws all these characters out, so it really helps you understand the book better when you know what the character looks like. So when you're reading about them, you can tell what they look like. Alright, so the next one, common theme. A common theme that me and Kaylee both decided for both of our books was that keep your head high in hard times. And this goes along with both of our books because I heard Kaylee was talking about her book, and they're basically both of our books seem to be about the main character going through something hard and overcoming it and having it work out in the end. So a quote that I picked to support this was, this was when Rowdy and Junior come back together and start to be friends again. And I didn't want to laugh. I wanted to stop laughing. I wanted to grab Rowdy and hang on to him. He was my best friend, and I needed him. So that basically goes along with our quote because, like, he's finally realizing at the end that he needed Rowdy this whole time, and he was just being too stubborn to, like, make up with him and be friends. And, like, it was hard enough for Junior to go through going to a new school that's, like, outside of his reservation, which isn't common. So going through the hate of the reservation people and the hate from all the white people at the school because he was the only Indian kid, he kind of really needed Rowdy in that hard time, and he just wasn't there for him. But then in the end, it finally works out, and him and Rowdy start to be friends again, and Rowdy supports Junior, and Junior supports Rowdy. Alright, so for classic definition, I define the word classic as, like, being original and like something that's like valuable to the world and like something that you're gonna remember and like it's vintage and it's like old and it's a classic, kind of like that's what it means. And so I don't really think that my book would be defined as classic, because like when you think of a classic book, like you think of like the Odyssey or like any of those famous like Romeo and Juliet, like those kind of books, like those are classics that people remember. But I feel like people wouldn't really remember this because like it's just about a kid and he like has brain problems and he gets bullied and he like has a hard life, and no one's just gonna remember that, and it's not gonna stick with anybody like of what Junior had to go through. And the quote that I picked for this was, "First of all, I had seizures, at least 2 a week, so I was damaging my brain on a regular basis. But the thing is, I was having those seizures because I already had brain damage, so I was reopening wounds each time I seized." So this quote kind of goes along with how rough Junior's life was, like going through seizures, a bunch of surgeries, like eye problems, like teeth problems. And I feel like that's not just something that people are going to remember, and that's not something valuable to people, like to think of this book as a classic book, because you're not going to think of this book when you think of classic, because who wants to like thinking about classic novels, like you're not going to think about like the ones with kids with like brain damages. You're going to think about the ones that actually leave a lasting impression on you and that you'll remember for a long time. All right, and then for the a la carte options, I decided to go with the one that is discuss how your author's background may have affected the book. So I didn't know anything about this author, so I searched him up online, this Sherman, and I literally thought it was a girl, but he is a guy. And this book is actually based on his life, which I didn't know. Like, everything was based on his life. Like, he lived in the same Indian reservation, and he went to like Wellpine and transferred to Reardan, and like he was an honor student, class president. And I feel like his background affected why he wanted to write this book, was because like he wanted to like tell people his story and what he had to go through. Like he had to go through bullying, and he had to go through with like acceptance and hardship of like losing a best friend, and like having to go through all those things without anyone supporting you. And I feel like that's why he like wrote this book, just to show people that like he came from hard times, but he still managed to overcome them, and like to be a successful person, and like obviously write so many books that are inspiring so many people. All right, so for literary analysis, I picked the question, what forces are motivating the character? So for Junior, I think a force that is motivating him are his parents, because they're like really supportive of him, and they're motivating him to go to Reardan when he wasn't really sure if he wanted to, like because it's outside the reservation and people were gonna hate on him because it's not common, but they just told him if it's gonna be better for him, then he should just do what he wants and follow his dreams. And I also said that the basketball team is motivating him because they help him out along the way when he gets bullied at Reardan. And for example, when he goes to play his old school Wellpine in a basketball game, when he gets there, like the whole team is booing him and the crowd is all booing him, but like his basketball team just like reinforces to him that like he shouldn't care about that stuff, and like they're just hating on him because he left the reservation, even though Junior's getting more opportunities to do what he wants there. So they're just telling him like it's not a big deal and just to let it go over your shoulder, because he shouldn't really focus about it. My works cited, I used this book, obviously, the one that I read, and the website called Britannica to research about the author's background. Peace.